Hey guys, welcome again. This is Bobby with Growthview, and today we have an incredibly exciting guest that I'm proud we get to host. It's Rob Overstreet from Harbor Drive Holdings. He is the CEO and a managing director, founder of the company, and I'm really excited that we're going to talk about a topic he opened my eyes to this last week, stepped up basis, which is really cool. So I hope you tune in for the whole thing. But Rob, welcome, man. Glad you can be here.
Thanks for having me, Bobby. Excited to be here. It's a big honor.
Yeah. Well, great, man. Well, tell us just a little bit about yourself and your history and the company, and then I'd love to dive in.
Yeah. Live in San Diego with my wife, two kids. Met my wife in school, San Diego State, where I studied economics, and my wife was a liberal arts major. She went on to be a teacher, and that's what she does today. And we just never left San Diego. We've been here 20 years. Serial entrepreneur. I've been business owner of a couple different businesses in the past. Most recently was a franchise business of a Minuteman Press, which was printing, graphic design, promotional products, all B2B services. I've always, had an entrepreneurial spirit. Started educating myself in all the benefits of real estate, and started studying, wealth creation and all these, different topics for building and creating, wealth for me, my family, and to help others do the same. And all roads led to real estate. So during my time as the franchise owner of Minuteman Press, I started attending conferences. I started reading a lot of books, networking, looking for mentors, and just taking baby steps. And, somewhere along the lines of 2014 or 15, we met our first mentors. It didn't start as a mentorship, but it kind of evolved into it. We had some things in common. We met at a real estate, weekend function, networking function. And, again, just started taking baby steps. We started, looking at deals together. We started underwriting deals. We started submitting offers on deals. Eventually closed our first apartment deal that we syndicated successfully in Dallas, Texas. That was in 2016. And that was an 80-unit project. We've since taken that one full cycle. The investors all did well. And from then on, I was kind of bit by the bug, the real estate bug, and so, we started looking for more deals. The next year we closed two more, a couple hundred doors, between a deal in Indianapolis and another one in Cincinnati. And at that time, I was still working in my business day to day. My franchise business was very much like owner operator. I had to be there, right, to make it grow and everything else. But my passion really was in the real estate. And so a couple of years ago, discussing with my wife, because my time commitments between my real estate business and my franchise business were kind of tugging at opposite ends of each other. Yeah. So together we decided that I would sell my Minuteman Press franchise and focus exclusively on real estate syndications, capital raising, and being an active real estate investor. So that leads me here to today. We have over 1,000 units currently under management, and looking for more. So
awesome. Well, incredible, man. Well, I'm glad we get to chat more about this. And the big topic that you really opened my eyes up to whenever we just initially met was this term I've never heard of, stepped up basis. And it seems like it can play a very major role for all age groups and demographics. So just tell us a little bit about this on like a very basic level. And then I'd love to maybe dive into the nuance and just some examples you could give us.
Sure. Yeah. So stepped up basis or stepped up cost basis is one of the many advantages, I should say, gifts that are given to us by the IRS, right? We all know about the depreciation benefits of real estate and all the different, tax efficiencies that real estate investments bring. Stepped up basis is another one of those tremendous tools that are given to us by the IRS. Not a lot of people, have heard of it or know about it, but there's a strategy that we're working on currently to deploy on a deal that we can get into here shortly, that uses a very creative method of combination of a little bit of seller financing and using the stepped up basis to not only benefit the seller of such property, but also the active real estate investor and their partners. So basically what the stepped up basis is it allows long time real estate owners to mitigate their capital gains tax upon death. Okay. The most common example is, grandpa bought, a farm, an apartment building, a piece of real estate 100 years ago for $1 million, right? Or whatever. And when upon his passing, 100 years later, that deal might be worth $10 million, leaving a $9 million capital gain that's exposed to, real estate tax liability, which can be significant, that the heirs have to, take care of. The stepped up basis allows for grandpa to step up the basis to the value of his deal the day he dies. So if the heirs want to sell the property, or, if they want to just adjust the tax basis, it goes up to the day that he passes. So that means that grandpa dies, his deal is now worth $10 million, and his heirs otherwise would be exposed to a $9 million capital gain, to which they'd have to pay significant tax liability on.
And quick question, that almost forces some people to sell when they don't maybe want to, right?
That's right. Yep, because it adjusts. So they'll adjust the taxes, and if the heirs or the estate can't afford it, it forces a sale, which then of course triggers a tax event. So it gets complicated. But the example I'm giving you is a very basic example. It's a little more involved than that, but this is really the high level. So granddad passes away, estate exercises the step up basis. Now it's as though in the eyes of the IRS, if the heirs want to sell it at $10 million, because they've stepped up the basis, the IRS will make the basis $10 million. It's as though the kids, the grandkids, whoever the estate is, bought the deal and sold the deal for the same price, meaning there's no capital gain, or in other words, no tax liability. It's an incredibly powerful tool. So that's the traditional application of the stepped up basis. We're working on a model that I learned from one of my later and current mentors that kind of taught this process to me, that as real estate investors, we can leverage the stepped up basis to truly provide win-win situations in very niche circumstances. Okay. So, I can talk about that if you'd like, and I can use a real example.
Yeah, no, I would love to dive into this. And the reason it matters so much to me, like what really caught my attention probably 3 to 4 years ago as a high income earner, is like, what can I do to deploy money? And just, it's not even, they're not tax loopholes. They are in the IRS law. Like people love using the word loophole, which is a bad term. Words matter, right? Like these are laws and kind of guidance they give us to follow. So it's important to talk about them. So you've covered stepped up basis. Let's dive into the other as well. That sounds incredibly valuable.
Okay. So the reason I learned about this is one of my current mentors is one of the most creative real estate deal makers I've met in the, 7 years I've been in the business. Really out of the box thinker, really smart guy. And we came to him because we had a lead on a portfolio deal in a great location in the Midwest, 380 units. Okay. We're currently in the process of working through this, and I hope it works out. But if not, we're going to continue to look for these exact situations that I'm about to lay out for you. So it would go something like this, and I'm going to use real numbers here. We're looking at a 380 unit, 2-property portfolio in the second largest city in Indiana right now. We've had ongoing dialogue, and this guy is in this very particular situation in which this strategy would apply. Okay. Whereby he bought these properties about 40 years ago, at 40 years ago prices. Okay. And so his capital gain is going to be significant. And, depending on The current bill on Capitol Hill, they're talking about increasing capital gains tax, long-term, short-term real estate, making adjustments, whatever that shuffles out to be. Regardless, he stands to pay a pretty hefty sum in taxes. Okay. And so he has a low cost basis because he bought these deals 40 years ago. He has almost zero debt. And the only reason he doesn't have zero debt is because he hooked a refi in somewhere along the way, but he has very, very low debt. So on a traditional sale, and the proposed pricing here is $20 million. Okay. So I'm going to just use $20 million. A traditional purchase and sale, you have buyer, you have seller, they agree 20 million. In his circumstance, he stands to pay in capital gains tax roughly $5 million plus or minus. It depends on how this bill shuffles out, whatever. But we're just going to use round numbers here. He's going to pay Uncle Sam $5 million. This guy walks away with $15 million in his bank account and he rides off into the sunset. Deal done. Scenario A. We're proposing to use this stepped up basis strategy, and it would go something like this.
Yeah.
Instead of paying the government his $5 million tax bill, okay, we'll buy his deal for $20 million. He stays on as a partner, so there is a little bit of a seller carry component to it, okay? He stays on as a partner. He leaves $5 million in the deal that otherwise would have gone to Uncle Sam anyways, okay? So no difference so far, right, between scenario A and this scenario. He leaves $5 million in the deal. We sign on the loan. He doesn't have to do any loan doc signing or anything. And we're using that $5 million as collateral to get a 75% levered loan on this 380 units. Okay. So we're good so far. On his $5 million, we're going to pay him some preferred rate of return, can be negotiated 5, 6, 7%, whatever. And that's it. So let's say we pay him a 5 pref, might be a 6. We can talk about it with the seller, whatever. On a 5 pref and $5 million that he leaves in the deal, we're going to pay him $250,000 a year passive income stream for the rest of his life. Okay. So let's stop right there. Scenario A, he gets 15 million bucks and the deal's done. He pays his $5 million tax liability. Our scenario, we essentially do a refinance, 75% levered loan. He leaves 5 million that otherwise would have been paid in taxes anyways. We pull out 15 million. So he still walks away with $15 million. Now, though, in our scenario, the 5 that he leaves in there, we're going to pay him $250,000 a year passive income stream that he can go play golf. He can go sit on the beach, do whatever he wants. And he still has the 15 million bucks in the bank. Okay. Let's go on. The way we're proposing to structure this is that at the latter of either 10 years time passes or a step-up basis, which only happens in the event of his death, right? So when he dies, or 10 years, whichever goes longer, right? If he lives for 20 or 30 or 100 years more, then it's fine. At the latter of 10 years or the step-up in basis, he dies. We then refi the deal out and we get his estate out of the 5 million that was left in there. And his estate gets 5 million more dollars. That's completely tax-free because we've exercised the step up in basis.
Okay.
So it's potentially a zero tax liability all the way across the board.
Yeah. So one key thing though, just for people maybe not sure, is a death one of the things that must be a qualifier for this?
Yes, that's correct. So the step up basis implies death.
Okay. So this is, at least right now with the current structure of just like the laws and the tax incentives, it's almost advantageous for a family member to hold on versus sell simply for this, assuming it doesn't change. But then part two, like just moving on from the dark component of it, it's actually incredible because not only do you take away a little chunk of cash, but now you've got passive cash flow for life, which is pretty rewarding because now you get time, the most scarce asset in the world.
Bingo. Yeah, it's really an incredible deal. This is not to say that there isn't some short-term heartburn to put this together. There's definitely extra legal. There's definitely extra CPA accounting work. I mean, everybody's got to be in close communication through the initial process. So there's a little bit of upfront heartburn, but if you can get through that and everybody's comfortable and everybody can get on board, it really is a win-win situation. His estate pays no tax. They get $5 million later at some later date when he dies, tax-free. The seller gets, in this case, a $250,000 a year passive income stream for the rest of his life. Now, some of your listeners might be asking, what's the relevance of the later of 10 years or the step up in basis? Well, the answer is because what if the guy dies next week? We do this deal today and he dies next week. We need time to season the deal, to appreciate the value of the property so that we can later refinance his estate out and then pay out his kids, his grandkids, his favorite charity, whatever is designated in the will, the estate, whatever. Right. Yeah. So if he dies tomorrow, we did this deal yesterday, we continue to honor the agreement for 10 years, only instead of paying the $250,000 to him, we're giving it to wherever the will says.
Got it. So just like a couple of like quick questions that come to mind now that we're really getting in the nitty gritty of this. One, is this something that needs to be planned years in advance, or is it when they're ready to potentially sell it, however that's really defined? And then part two, who needs to really worry about this? Is it the current owner, or is it the inheritor who needs to be like most knowledgeable of this topic?
Okay, so when to prepare for this, we can start doing this tomorrow, you know, with a qualified attorney and a qualified CPA that understand this process. And you can talk to any competent CPA and explain this, and they will get it. You know, the attorney needs to obviously draft up some special language that talks about, because he's going to be a partner on the deal still, right? And that's what doesn't trigger a taxable event on the front end of this process, right? Because there's not a transfer of real estate. He's still the deeded owner. Right. We're the ones signing on the loan. So as far as like risk goes, I mean, the risk burden is on our shoulders, right? Because it's our name on the loan. He doesn't sign on the loan. We default. He just, well, the bank would take it back, but you know, he would be still the deeded owner, you know? So one of the challenges up front is getting all parties comfortable with one another, because it's a partnership. It's a 10-year partnership, right? With us and him and or his estate. So everybody being comfortable with this. And then the second question was, who needs to know about this? That's one of the challenging parts to this, because when you first pitch this to a potential person that this particular situation would apply to, it can be challenging to wrap your mind around it. But you know, the way we've kind of navigated it in this one particular situation is, hey, let's schedule some time with your CPA, with our CPA. We all powwow this thing together. We can kind of hash it out theoretically and make sure that you and your, you know, third-party service providers, CPA, attorney, are all on board and comfortable with this situation. But there's so many more benefits, Bobby. You know, for example, well, let's back up. First of all, this strategy only works in very specific situations. Okay. Most commercial real estate trades hands every 3 to 7 years or whatever, on average 5 years. And most of them, you know, are either syndicated or real estate trust or family office, where, you know, multiple investors and things, and highly leveraged and all of this. You know, most deals, this strategy will not apply to. But how many millions of commercial properties are out there in the United States? You know, how many thousand Jane and John Does that are in this exact situation that have a problem that they may not even know about, which there's a solution that they didn't even know existed.
Well, this takes me into like I didn't have this plan, but like it takes me to like some of these less, I guess, sexy assets. Maybe it's not multifamily. Maybe it's a parking lot that's been there for 30 years. Maybe it's a mobile home park. Maybe it's this other asset I'm not thinking of. Like, it gets really unique even outside of the very common like multifamily, right?
Totally. That's exactly right. And here's the other thing. I mean, you're out there, you and your partners looking at deals every day, just like we are. I mean, we underwrite deals every day, every week, month, quarter, whatever. We're looking at a lot of deals, right? Pass on most of them. It's tough to make a deal pencil in today's environment. And that's because we're all trying to hit 15s and 18s and 20s for our investing partners, as we should be. And so we're looking for needles in haystacks. If the cost of our equity is a 5 or 6 pref with no upside, there's plenty of cash flow in it for not only the seller in this case, but also for the partners that put this deal together, the active investor, right? Because above a 5 or 6, we're getting any excess cash flow during the hold period. So these things cash flow better. We can afford to pay a little bit more even, which puts us in a better position to negotiate if it gets, to that point. And then on top of that, a lot of these long-time owners, long-time sellers, family, grandpa, whatever, whoever it is, they're intimately and emotionally involved with the property. And that includes the staff, a lot of times the residents in apartment real estate, they're emotionally invested in it. And, and I'm sure you guys have heard this, but, we run across sellers. This happens all the time where they say, hey, I love Susie, the office manager. Can we please keep her job? Or, oh, like this tenant has lived here forever. Can we keep that? Traditional sale, right? With a syndicator or a group of investors on my back that, we're trying to hit these lofty returns for. I mean, in order to hit those goals, those targets, those financial returns to our investing partners, we have to be aggressive. And so that means, we buy a deal and we come in guns to the sky, everybody's fired, and we got to, start turning units and displacing residents and things. It's like in this case, if it's a mom and pop seller that care about everybody, and which, is fine, but there's not that pressure is what I'm saying with a group of investors that we have to hit these goals for. And so the pressure mounts, we got to, turn units and raise rents and all this stuff. It's like we can ease our way into it because we have 10 years or longer, to appreciate the asset. So we don't have to come in day one and start, firing and changing everything around. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's almost like, it's almost like something kind from Uncle Sam for once. Like they're willing to throw a bone. Not only does it serve the original owner, it serves the person who put the deal together, and it serves the incentives of the people who live there. And that's something like, I think for me, investing in real estate, like I see, like, I'll try to make this really quick. Like, there's a shortage of apartments. There's now a shortage of homes after COVID. Like everything's expensive. And it's just, there's this seek for yield, and cost of capital is low. So syndicators are under a lot of extra competition, right?
And pressure. Yep.
Who bears the load of this? It's often the people living in the unit. So it's like, in my mind, and here's the stepped up basis we're talking about, and this kind of great scenario it creates kind of for everyone other than the government for once, right? But then over here, there's this kind of a mission I think a lot of syndicators have, is to create affordable housing. Let's revive some of these dead buildings that are going to get torn down if they're actually not acquired and repaired and improved. And it kind of gets rid of that headache where you're kind of looking for that needle in the haystack, and you're actually finding a unique situation where you can bring value to all parties, which are really just the normal everyday people that we're here together, right? It kind of like government's like, hey, we're throwing you a bone. Like that's one of the coolest things I've actually learned about, I'd say, like in my real estate career.
Yeah. It's something that I learned again, couple years ago from one of my mentors, and who's successfully executed this at least twice. And here's the cherry on top. At the ladder of 10 years or a step up basis, you, me, and our couple of partners that did this deal are now going to own 380 apartment units with no investors for the rest of our lives. I mean, that's creating wealth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Incredible.
It's not like we have to recycle the capital and get the investors' money back and look for the next deal. It's not this churn and burn. It's like long-term ownership of real estate. If we can successfully work this out with this guy or somebody else, it really is a win-win-win. They pay no taxes. They get an income stream for the rest of their lives. We can ease our way into appreciation. It's not this heavy pressure of having to execute on the plan because we're trying to hit a 20 IRR for an investor. And then at the end of the rainbow, and I hope the guy lives for 100 more years. It doesn't matter to us, like live as long as you want. It doesn't matter to us. But at the ladder of 10 years and step up, we're going to own this deal outright with no investors or very few investors, right?
Yeah.
And in certain situations, we might bring a couple of our closest investors in with us, like, hey, you guys want a piece of this? We're going to keep it forever, type of thing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I've talked to our CEO and general partner, Samson, and one of his strategies is like, we want to get assets and we want to hold them forever if we can. Like that would be incredible.
That's
like
right.
let's not just get rid of it. Like let's hold it. Let's take care of our families. Like we've got a mission to help people, a mission to take care of those in our circle, and a mission to give back. And if you can do that, like that's incredible. That's where my heart is, because I'm often torn like with different investments because it's very cutthroat in the financial world, and
Oh,
I
yeah.
love the idea of like having these things where you can make enough and get by. You don't need to like scrape for more, and you get to take care of other people. And it sounds like that's the alignment of this and the alignment like of my heart as well. But that's I love it. And I guess like next steps, like in terms of all of this, like do you have any other maybe applicable examples or good things you can share, or just kind of taking this in another direction where someone who hears this and they're just excited, whether it mean, hey, we can tell grandpa about this, or hey, maybe this can help me start my business, or whatever lens anyone could look at it through, what would be the power tip maybe you'd share?
Yeah, if anyone's interested in learning about this strategy, or at least, exploring this or looking for sellers in this situation, because as I said, Bobby, most commercial real estate owners have a group of 10 to 100 investors behind them. And so in those situations, this deal does not work. What you're looking for is the longtime family owned, or, grandpa or mom or dad owned deal, mom and pop kind of operator that has owned it for 30 years. So my advice would be, if you're interested in looking for these types of situations, get a subscription or find somebody that has a subscription to something like CoStar, Rayonomy, some type of real estate data service. And you can search properties in any given region that you're interested in investing in based on a number of hundreds of criteria, including sale date, right? That's an easy place to start. 20 years or later, or 30 years or later. Loan origination date. That's a big one. They just got a loan yesterday. They're not going to do this, right? So, loan originated 20 years ago or whatever, right? Because those people are more likely to be in this bucket that we're looking for to execute on this strategy. And as I mentioned, maybe they want out, maybe they don't, doesn't really matter, but we're just trying to educate them about an alternative option. One thing that people tell me when I kind of outline this strategy is like, well, why wouldn't they just 1031? Well, a lot of these operators, including this case, the 380 units is being self-managed. And that's all they've known. And that's all they've, wanted to do. But in this particular case, guy's in his 80s. And he just doesn't want to be in the day-to-day any longer, And so a 1031 may not, be appealing to these types of, people in these types of situations. And so, this is a great alternative option for them to potentially completely avoid taxes, provide a passive revenue stream for the rest of their lives, and add additional, in this case, $5 million tax-free to the estate for kids, grandkids, favorite charity later, that otherwise would have been just evaporated into the government coffers anyways,
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Because a 1031, I mean, if I was to do that and you had that much equity in the deal and just now dollars to deploy, it's like you would likely seek more, right? Like you would try to do something bigger. And then that either creates more work for him if he's that type of sweat equity guy at the age of 80, which sounds like a challenge even for a guy my age, or you know, you're leaving someone else with the burden, whereas you can take this approach you're talking about and you get to enjoy the rest of your life and other people are taken care of. And like you said, it takes care of the tenants too, which I really kind of appreciate. This is a unique strategy where it takes care of the people who've been living there, especially in a time like now where just homes are going up in value, rents are insane, everything. So I love that strategy. And those were some really power tips. Anyone who heard that like 5 to 6 minutes ago, where it said set up on CoStar and look at when the last deal was signed or when it was bought, and just those metrics you can follow. I'm sure there's others, but that's a great point. That would be really good for someone young, maybe getting in, who didn't want to learn the ins and outs of everything else you're doing. But like, here's one component we want to focus on. Like, that's a good jumping off point, I think, for a young investor.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a powerful strategy. And, and we're going to continue to do our own syndicated deals, go out and find the deals, raise capital from investors, hit those 15s, those 18s, those 20s, and help our investing pool grow their wealth, because that's a big passion of ours as well, is helping our investors, grow and keep their wealth, right, through real estate. But this is a great alternative strategy that any active investor can use to accelerate their own growth. I mean, think about that. Like, if me and my partner and maybe, you and a couple others or what, whoever it is, 5 or 6 guys just own 380 units for the rest of our lives, we never sell it,
Yeah, no, I love that. That's incredible. And I think I would love to hear stories of this like 3 years from now from people who hear this. So we'll have to hopefully field that and get the feedback, because this is incredible. And if it's a good time, I would love to kind of shift the conversation a little bit to maybe where you think multifamily is going, and just even like getting a mortgage and home ownership. Like, it's really interesting right now because what is it? Millennials are one of the biggest cohorts of home buyers ever. There's a shortage of homes that obviously puts a little bit of pressure on multifamily. Like, where do you see all of this going over the next, 3 to 5 years? We've got probably 15, 20 minutes left. So I'd love to kind of dig into that and see where your mind goes in this question.
That's the $1 million question, isn't it, Bobby? You're really putting me on the spot. These things all go in cycles. I personally believe that this next downturn is being artificially propped up, through COVID over the last, 18, 24 months. The central banks here have printed north of $5 trillion and put that into, the central banking system. The last time they did this crazy printing spree was in 08 and 09. They printed about $2 trillion. And since then, cap rates have just compressed over the last 10 years. Now, that's one measure. It's not to say that that's the only measure of where cap rates go from here, but there is a tremendous amount of money, more than double the amount of money that was last time through this printing spree, which in my opinion is completely reckless, that is looking for yield. And I mean, I'll speak on the short term. I think 22, here we are the first week of January in 22. I think 22 is going to look a lot like it did in 21. I think there's going to be price bidding up. I think people are going to be just scratching and clawing. I mean, you go try to put an offer on a deal. It's almost a mandatory to have non-refundable earnest money into the deal day one. I mean, people are putting up $1 million in their mom's house hard day one to get a contract done, and win, lose or draw, they're losing all that money. So I believe that there's always good deals out there, no matter where we're at in the cycle. As far as some downturn, I would say don't bet on 22, regardless of where interest rates, Powell came out and said, that they're going to raise rates 2 or 3 or whatever he said times this year. I think cap rates continue to compress. I think asset pricing continues to go up, regardless of if, 10-year treasuries increase outside of some material major jump in 10-year notes. If they go up a couple basis points, each one of these raises or whatever, and of course they're fluctuating every day.
Yeah.
I don't think that's going to matter much in the short term in terms of commercial real estate asset pricing, especially in multifamily.
Yeah. So quick question. Are you into Bitcoin at all?
I'm not. I'm starting
Okay.
to learn about it. In fact,
Okay.
anyways, but go on.
That's
Yeah.
that's totally okay. I was listening to a video today from Michael Saylor and Ross Stevens, who's the CEO of NYDIG. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
if you've heard of them, but they're in this 2-minute clip. He basically talks about I forget if it was Japan or Germany. They basically said we're going to raise rates. Whenever they did, everything just went downhill, and they immediately moved them. They didn't immediately move them up. They moved it up 6 months later. In Japan, I think they did it in the 80s or something, and I'll have to source the video in the notes. But they did the same thing. We're going to move rates up. They had to respond and move the rates back down 2 to 3 weeks later. Christine Lagarde did this 2 years ago or a year ago. She said, we're going to move rates up. Within 2 hours, they moved the rates back down, and they retracted her statement, which has never been done. And maybe you kind of know this story, but whenever I heard that, it immediately cemented to me. And I heard this a year ago and I didn't really catch on. And I heard it again today with more knowledge, et cetera. And it really stuck to me. And I was just like, this thing's not stopping, which kind of you were alluding to earlier. And a fascinating note I heard the other day from a guy named Tommy Lee, who manages a lot of money on Wall Street. He was saying our savings to GDP is 600% in America. It's higher than it's ever been. So people have savings. It's just there's a dichotomy in all these factors, but historically, looking back 30 years, there's no way to move rates up and keep them there long term, which is kind of something you mentioned a second ago. Like, who knows where it'll go? But I agree. Like, I think 2022 could mirror the same thing. We're not going to see a crash like some people love to doom and gloom on. But yeah.
I think government intervention is kind of screwing this thing up. I think I'm a free market, guy. I think market forces should, take care of this mess, not governments. And I don't know if you ever listened to George Gammon. I listen to his podcast. Yeah. He's a libertarian. I just like the way he thinks. But I was listening to one of his shows yesterday. He was talking about this concept of UBI, universal basic income, where they're just going to print money and give it to everybody. The whole United States, all adults, working, not working, doesn't matter, because they're trying to help. And this isn't out yet. They're doing these pilot programs in certain cities, and their thinking is like, well, we're going to give people money, and they're going to spend it, and it's going to help lower economic folks. Well, if you give everybody money, it's not helping anyone, because that's going to drive prices of things up. Right? Gas and groceries and everything. So people that it was intended to help, it's only going to put them in the exact same place as they were. And quite frankly, it's going to hurt those middle-class folks who did it all right their whole lives, saved, invested, worked hard, 40, 50 years, retire. It's killing their retirement with this crazy inflation. And I don't know how it ends, but it scares me, really. Some of these policies that are being, implemented, and the money printing and these levers they're pulling and buttons they're pushing at the Fed, it's just, it's really scary. Is it good as a property owner because prices are going up and your values are skyrocketing? Of course, but I'm a true believer in letting the markets take care of everything. That's my opinion. I think there's a lot of artificial, influencers out there that's creating this bubble that's going to burst, and it's going to be a bloodbath. I don't know when. I hope it doesn't happen that way, but it's too much government spending, too much money printing. It's not going to end well.
Yeah, I really do enjoy Gammon, and you raised a good point. Like, one of the things, all this artificial just support they're creating, I heard someone make the example, if everyone has extra money and everyone's bidding on Ferraris, there's not going to be more Ferraris. What happens? The Ferrari price goes up. Same things with homes, same things with milk, etc. So it's just like, in a way, it's a bit disrespectful to like say these things as the government, and they know it. They just know they can't take their foot off the gas because of what would happen. But at the same time, that was why one of the reasons I asked about Bitcoin, because one of the things we're looking at it this year is just alternative investments in data centers, Bitcoin mining, and I've been a Bitcoiner for 4 years. Anyone who follows Growth View knows that. I kind of mentioned it at the last second at the end, but I think it's interesting how there's this shift where it's being used globally. In America, we're the number one mining country in the world right now. I think Kazakhstan, I always say the name wrong. Kazakhstan, I'm spacing on it, but
Yeah.
they and their government, they shut down the internet because people were speaking against the government, and they were the number two mining country in the world. Now they've kind of gone offline. And today Congress released or people wrote a letter to Congress saying, here's why we want to fight like Bitcoin mining and climate change. And it's just, we're at this crazy crossroads of where the government's like, we're going to print all we want. And there's historically proof, you're in line with me, we disagree with it. It hurts people. And then there's this free market money, the one free market left in the world that they're trying to step in against. And we're seeing China ban mining, this go on where the internet's getting shut down, America embracing it in Texas. And it's just incredible. It's insane, like what's going on. It's just wild. And you said you studied economics. Like obviously in college, they teach us about like Keynesian economics. Like, are you much of a student of Austrian economics and just that school of economics?
I lean a little more towards the Austrian side, but quite honestly, I studied econ. A lot of my colleagues in college all went on to get advanced degrees and all this stuff. I just went straight into the workforce, started working, and regretfully, I enjoyed my time in college. Let's just leave it right there. I mean, I was an average student, made a lot of friendships. It was a great experience, SDSU, but I wish I would have retained a little bit more of my economics, teachings from college. But, since getting into real estate, I have, I guess regained my appetite as a student of economics. And so, I listen to a lot of, George Gammon's, there's a handful of others. Hunter Thompson is a big, libertarian, and his podcast is great. They talk a lot about these kinds of concepts and topics and macro economics. But I never got super deep into advanced economic theory and all of this stuff. I was there to enjoy my time, and I didn't really get serious with my life until some years later, when I started taking interest in entrepreneurship. And I mean, the entrepreneurship was always inside of me. But anyways, so
yeah, I'm with you there. I know
Yeah.
we always look back on college. I wish I would have
Yeah.
done a little more, but I hear you. That's awesome. Well,
Yeah, I was always, and this kind of predates, and I'm embarrassing myself here, but like even like high school, I was like kind of the class clown, like I was in sports and everything, and not a bad grade student, but certainly not, I didn't apply myself as much as I probably should have, or my mom wanted me to.
yeah.
So
No, I'm with you there, man. Even in college, like I'll be honest, I failed algebra like 3 times. I hate math. Now
yeah.
I'm at a point where like I should have paid attention, and any role I put myself at, I do an incredible job like yourself, but it's just the school system's interesting. But we made it through, and we're doing a good job now. And I mean, I really pray and hope that as a country we really dial in what we're doing, and we can really give the people what they need, and take care of our nation. But yeah, I mean, I appreciate you making time chatting with us. I know we're getting close to the end here, but if there's anything last you want to share, maybe like any imperative reading or just like key things that have made a major impact on your career, what would be some final words you might share with our audience?
We're business owners, we're entrepreneurs, always looking to improve ourselves. I read a lot of books. The most recent one, and you've probably read it already, that I'm in the middle of is Gino Wickman, Traction. Great book. Talks about building systems in your business, and we've applied some of the concepts there. Another good one that I read recently was by Brendan Kane, Hook Point. We're doing a lot of, outbound marketing and things, trying to educate folks and just preach the word, right? About the power, the benefits of investing in our product offering of commercial real estate. And Hook Point is a great marketing book if you're looking for something, if you're out there in the digital world, social media or email, digital marketing, things like that. It's all about this 3-second world that we live in. I mean, when you think about it, everybody's on their phone looking through, they're going to Instagram, like your message literally has less than 3 seconds to reach off someone's screen and slap them in the face. So, that's the whole concept of that book. It's a great read.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Those are good. Yeah. The 3-second thing is like almost a decade long digital marketer. I can relate to that. Traction sounds really good. I haven't read that by
Gina
Gabriel.
Wickman. Yeah.
Is it Gabriel Weinberg for Traction? Is that the name?
Wickman. Gino Wickman.
Gino Wickman. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I clicked the wrong one. Okay. Awesome. Gino Wickman. Great. Yeah. I'll have to check that one out. That's a good recommendation. Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Wonderful. Well, I see you've got a little bit of contact information here. You got your email, your cell phone, and all your socials. What's probably the best way would you recommend that you're most on top of, or you prefer maybe reach out if anyone wants to say hello and just learn a little bit more?
Yeah, I appreciate that, Bobby. The best way is probably our website, harbordriveholdings.com. And on the website, you can find me, my phone number's there, my email's there. You can connect with me on, any of the social platforms. And I'd encourage any of your listeners, especially if they're interested in talking more about the step up basis. I'm happy to talk with anybody or anything real estate related. I mean, we do this every day. I love the space that we operate in. I love talking about it. So, anytime, give me a call, reach out. But the website, is a good place to start. You can see kind of some things that we're working on. There's a blog there, that we update every month. And all my contact information can be found harbordriveholdings.com.
Okay, well, wonderful. This has been incredibly valuable for me. I've been in the weeds for 3 to 4 years, and I'm sure it is for our listeners if they're even newer, or older, like they're going to love this. So I appreciate you taking the time and being open to share with the listeners and give your time. So, man, we appreciate it. Thank you so much again. We'll have to do it sometime soon.
Let's do it, Bobby. I had fun. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.